for us, we actually extracted the principles from the Bible, 2 Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. And we replaced the word love with the word coach. And then it was a test, right? Coach is patient, coach is kind, coach does not envy, coach does not boast, coach is not self-seeking. And we started to ask ourselves, if we became those coaches in our gym for these athletes that come to the gym, number one, would they want to come back more? And would they want to give a better effort when they're in our doors?
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by author and founder of Players Fitness and Performance, Andrew Simpson. Coach Simpson has been working with athletes for the last 12 years. At his PFP gyms, he provides mindset and performance coaching to help athletes overcome their overthinking and succeed at the level they know they are capable of. He does this by helping them identify where they've been, where they are today, where they want to go, and finally create a gap map to make constant progress and improvement towards their goals, all while remaining healthy and happy along the way. Coach Simpson has written several books, including The Unstoppable Athlete, 12 Keys to Help Your Athlete Unlock Their Full Potential. You can learn more at andrewjsimpson.com. Make sure you check out the show notes for Coach Simpson's free athlete mindset book. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Hey, Matt, how are you, brother?
Andrew, what's going on?
How's it going?
Well, everything is good here. Living the dream. Just finished second period athletics with my players, and I'm pretty much always in a good mood after that.
Awesome. And tell me, so you teach and coach, correct?
Well, I don't say I teach much anymore. I'm at Grapevine Faith Christian School, DFW, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, and I have a PE and some study halls, a couple off periods. I do tell other coaches that I feel like I have probably one of the best jobs in America because it's mainly about coaching, but help in other ways I can. But man, how are you doing today? That's the most important thing.
It's been an awesome day so far. I got to go. I was outside of this grocery store in this little area where I can kind of get work done. And I could even do video calls. No one's ever there, and it's got good Wi-Fi. And then I turned around and my wife and my daughter were grocery shopping at that grocery store. I was like, this is great. I get to see my daughter, get to see my wife for a couple minutes.
That's a fun little coincidence right there. That's nice. I want to thank you so much for coming on and giving up your time to talk. And usually it's hoops and basketball, but I love conversations like this where we get to talk about the way you say it is that how to help our players to be healthy, humble, and high performing. Because like you say, it is the goal. And so I just want to thank you so much for giving up your time, man.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you inviting me on.
I also want to give Adam Bradley a shout out because he's the one that connected us. I mean, he does amazing stuff with Lead 'em Up, and I really appreciate him making this connection as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Love Adam. Love his energy too, right?
No doubt. Contagious. I first met him at a PGC Snaps, clinic or the little meeting that they have. And I just thought, golly, there's something to this guy. And also I was a big fan of his on the Hardwood Hustle when he was there first with Alan Stein back in the day with that podcast. So yeah, I've been a fan of his for a while. I was able to have him on, man, pretty early on in this podcast journey. So yeah, great guy. Because a lot of maybe coaches here in Dallas, Fort Worth may not be, or in Texas may not be familiar with you, talk a little bit about the gym that you run and then also the winning athlete formula, how those things work together.
Yeah. So back in 2014, back in, I guess, 2010 is when I got into the industry, training youth athletes, helping them develop physically. And then it was in 2014 that I ended up seeing a lot of the athletes, despite getting bigger, faster, stronger, having all the athleticism in the world, even all the intelligence in the world, at the end of the day, their mindset was holding them back in a lot of ways, right? You step out on that court or on that field and you're prepared physically and you've got the skills, but then you make a mistake and you can't get out of your head. Or coach pulls you out and you get mad at yourself and then you can't get back in the zone. And so that, amongst a lot of other mindset related challenges, we just saw that these were the things plaguing the athletes that were coming in to get bigger, faster, stronger. And so we decided to go down a pretty long journey. It took us to get educated, not just on how to help athletes get physically more fit and strong and capable, but also improve their mindset and work on the mental game.
It's a unique combination, because I think you're right on the money. Like with the skills, if whether it's skill training or that performance training, so many times we just focus on that one thing. And we might even see that they're struggling to perform and that the mental side is holding them back. And we might throw out a little quote, put our arm around them, but really having something structured, like a plan that you take them through alongside of the training you're doing, man, that's huge.
Yeah, and just the concept. So part of this program that we run at our gyms now, both of our facilities that we run, is the first 5 to 7 minutes of every workout is mindset. So we've got a group of 4 to 6 athletes in a group. Their coach is there, and then they go through one of our motivational mindset messages. And it's like, we've found over the years that like information even is power, education is power for these athletes, because just knowing that, hey, my brain's default is I'm going to look for what's wrong, I'm going to look for what's missing, or I'm going to look for what could go wrong. And that's what my brain is naturally going to do as a person, as an athlete. And so I got to know that, because I've got to know how to counter that. Since that's my default mode, what does being proactive and building a stronger mindset actually look like? So we go through 52 messages a year with these athletes. And then the ones that want to go deeper into mindset, we've got programs for them too. But we've really seen some amazing things happen just from that 5 to 7 minutes, prioritizing it at the beginning of every workout. And we've seen, since a couple of, I put out a couple of books and whatnot, but since I've put that stuff out there, we've actually seen sports coaches start to prioritize the first 5 to 7 minutes of their practices to touch on some aspect of the mental game, which that brings me tons of joy, because I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. I know what could happen to an athlete when they free themselves of fear, comparison, anxiety, perfectionism, all these things that hold athletes back from not just success, but fulfillment, right? We want our athletes to have a fulfilling sports career, not one where they get to the top and then they look back and they're like, that was terrible, right? Like,
yeah,
that's not cool. Yep.
I'm not sure how many coaches aren't doing this, like aren't spending time on the mental side of training. Because you're right. I mean, shooting is one of my favorite things to talk about with players. And I'm convinced more and more that it's only 10% your form, and it's more 90% what's right in between your ears. Because you could take two guys that they've trained the appropriate amount, their shots look good, but the outcomes are vastly different. What's holding one guy back over the other? It's got to be that self-talk, what's in his head. So I don't know how many coaches do that well or prioritize it. Let me ask you about your books. If you were gonna, obviously it's hard. You have more than one, so it's like having two kids. Who's your favorite, right? It's hard to say that, but like, which one would you recommend to coaches that want to get into this and maybe can help them with a plan?
It's funny because the first book, The Youth Truth, was written directly to coaches and parents with the intention of addressing a lot of the issues we were seeing in youth sports, right? Practicing until 10 o'clock at night with 13-year-old kids, 7 days a week, playing on 14 different clubs at once, parents screaming at refs and coaches, just overzealous coaches in general, overzealous parents. And a lot of them didn't even realize they were doing it. So the first book was written to the coaches and parents to address the issues and then to provide a way forward, right? A couple solutions. And I know that one has been impactful for parents and coaches, but the second book was written more to the athlete to help them. Hey, if your coaches don't change, if society doesn't change, if your parents don't change, we still need you to be equipped and have the tools that you need to get out of your own head and to, master your own mindset. But the interesting thing has been a lot of coaches have read the one that was written directly to the athlete and said, I got more out of that one, being able to apply these lessons to my athletes, because I guess it helped them to understand what was actually going through their players' minds so they could relate to them better and meet them where they were at. Because I share, six or so stories. Actually, the athletes themselves wrote their stories and put them in my book, ones that had mindset related challenges and then overcame them and achieved a lot. So yeah, both, I guess, would be the answer. Just they come at it from different angles.
Well done, man. Way to get both of them in there. That's good. No, I think it makes me think a lot about my time with PGC. I was able to direct with them for a few years, and I always felt like we took these 5 days to really build up our players as the way that they lead themselves, the way that they can lead others, the way they can lead their program, and give them a lot of great tools. But then that last day, I just felt like, man, like this fear almost of, are they ready to go back to a program that is maybe the exact opposite? And there are great coaches out there that are doing what you like, trying to create healthy, humble, high-performing athletes. Like those guys exist. But I've played for, and a lot of athletes play for, the more the Bobby Knight style that still does exist at times of that type of culture.
Yeah.
What are some things? I mean, obviously, maybe I'm getting into your book, but what are some things we can do to help them to survive when they go back to those other environments where, man, it's the exact opposite of what I've been taught here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got a lot of thoughts on that, but I think one of the most important things is for us as coaches and parents to recognize that the temptation and the lure to fall into the rat race of youth sports and athletics is just as strong for us as it is for these athletes.
So true.
Right.
Yeah.
And to wake up every day, and that's what I do every day, right? I wake up every day and I recognize, like, I know that if I am not intentional, then I'm going to be tempted to let my selfish ambition about what I want to achieve in sports and what I want my athletes to achieve, let that get in the way of actually knowing what I value most as a coach. And you know, it's a tough thing, because in today's world, you know, sports are on such a high pedestal, and I love sports, right? That's what our whole business is based around. But sports are on such a high pedestal that these athletes, they're scared to fall off from it. They're placed on such a high pedestal, and fear is the opposite of courage, right? I mean, fear is going to keep your athletes from achieving what they could achieve ultimately. So I think we have to recognize that, you know, every day, like as a coach or a parent, this is just as much a battle for me as it is for them.
No doubt. And I had an opportunity to have a talk with Shawnee Harley. She's up in Canada doing some amazing things, but she made the comment that you have to choose your hard. You have to choose your hard every day. And the path to fear is hard, but also the path to courage is hard. But you have to choose one of those. And I do see so many players choosing the path of fear. They're afraid of failure, afraid of losing their spot, afraid of external consequences from their friends or their coaches. But I think you're right on the money. If we can get our athletes choosing that path to courage, which is, yeah, you're going to compete a ton, and sometimes you're going to lose, you're going to fail, you're going to miss shots. We're not afraid of missing those. We're going to continue to act courageously. Maybe that's a way where they can come back. And then I thought too of, like, you know, being a light, be the change you want to see. Like, we're sending these players back from your program to programs that are the opposite of this. Well, maybe they can just grab one more player over to their side, and maybe that helps.
That's right. I'm right on the same page, man, for sure.
So usually I ask about standards and pillars of programs, and, you know, with the coaches, they probably have 3 or 4 words or something on a t-shirt or a slogan that they do. But with your gym or with the winning athlete formula, what are some of those standards of the program? Like when players come in, these are the pillars that we're going to take you guys through that you're going to learn.
Yeah. So I'll start with like the program as a whole and what we believe from a philosophy coaching standpoint, and then we can get into some of the things that the athletes experience themselves. But love-powered leadership is the first and most important component of our program. And for a long time, in the beginning of our business, I thought it was going to be like too soft. Coaches were going to see it and be like, oh, I'm not going to send my players there. Love-powered leadership. Like, what's going to happen? They're just going to give them hugs when they fail
just
on a
sit in a circle, talk about their feelings.
Yeah, right. Until we started diving deeper into what is love-powered leadership and what is love-powered coaching. And a love-powered coach does what is in the best interest of the athlete, no matter what. No matter what, even if it's inconvenient for them or the athlete, even if it takes a lot of courage, doesn't matter. They do what's in the best interest of the athlete. And so for us, we actually extracted the principles from the Bible, 2 Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. And we replaced the word love with the word coach. And then it was a test, right? Coach is patient, coach is kind, coach does not envy, coach does not boast, coach is not self-seeking. And we started to ask ourselves, if we became those coaches, in our gym for these athletes to come to the gym, number one, would they want to come back more? And would they want to give a better effort when they're in our doors? And the answer was yes, time and time again. And then also, would they actually end up getting better results? Because for the coaches that think love powered coaching is soft, well, guess what? Love also corrects, love disciplines, but
Yeah.
not out of anger, not out of self interest, out of, hey, this is in the best interest of this young man or woman. I've got to call them out, or I've got to correct them in this situation. So for us, the biggest, most important pillar is love powered leadership. And then the second one, and I don't know if you want to touch base on
Coach,
that one.
can I go?
Yeah,
Can I go to
go
the
ahead.
first one first? Because man, that's
Yeah.
so good. I love that. I love that verse. I love you making that change. And because as soon as you started to list it that way, golly, like it's piercing. It really
Sure.
makes me think. In your opinion, what keeps coaches from being love-powered coaches?
What keeps a coach from being a love powered coach? Probably quite a few things. I think one is maybe they've never considered that the opposite of being a love powered coach is what's actually keeping them from having the best experience as a coach that they could have. And it's keeping them from seeing the level of success and fulfillment that they could see with their teams, with their players, because love always wins. And that's a fact. So I think that it's just maybe a lack of knowledge around what love really is. And maybe they've never seen it in action. Maybe they've never studied the great John Wooden and his approach, right? And love powered coaching is what he did. And that did mean sometimes that he was going to get on those players hard, but they listened to him. They respected him because he had built a relationship. He had built trust, and he was consistent in all his ways. So I think that's what keeps them. And then it's also just, again, it's getting into that rat race of sports and believing that the championship trophy, that's the pinnacle of success. And it's like, that's as empty as a CEO who makes millions of dollars, but then loses the family and relationships along the way. It's going to feel like that if you haven't mastered the art of love powered coaching along the way.
I wonder if discipline comes into it too, because I think there's a misconception of really what discipline looks like or sounds like. People think that discipline means hard-nosed. They're all going to stand at attention. It's like in Remember the Titans. Is football fun? No, sir. Zero fun, sir. Like they think that's discipline, but discipline is you have standards that you live by. We're going to hold you those standards, but there's just a way to do it where you can still be a love-powered coach and not feel like it's a free-for-all. I think maybe that's the fear, is that they won't respect me and we won't be able to get anything done, and we're going to lose if we don't have this discipline rooted in fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of it, as you say that, it makes me think of just the word or versus and. And I think that we just have an obsession with or, and we think that it has to be this or that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, both and.
Man, I just thought of Star Wars. Golly, this is I'm gonna nerd. But
only a
Sith Lord deals in absolutes. I'm gonna edit that out because that's just no. But there is so much gold in Star Wars, and I used to have a speed round question where I asked if you like Godfather or Star Wars. Real quick, what would you choose, Godfather or Star Wars?
Oh man. Probably
you
Godfather.
Could say neither. I had some of those guys, but no, you're right. Like it's rarely or. I mean, with discipline, like with consequences with our players, the situations are rarely the same. They rarely have the same background at home. They rarely have the same interactions with their teachers and same struggles in classes, or socially have the same. So to have these hard lines with disciplines or the ways that you even coach your players, I don't know. I think that's just dangerous.
Yeah, well, here's something for you. So about 7 years ago is when I first saw the statistic of 77% of athletes quit sports by the age of 13. 77%. And so I've been like keeping up with like, okay, where's this trending, right? For me, I'm like, are my books making any difference? Is the mission that we're all making any difference, right? Well, the population's exploding. So no, the statistics aren't getting any better, right? And it's just continuing to go in the wrong direction. And then you think about the principle that rules without relationship equals rebellion. Well, what are athletes doing? They're rebelling from coaches, they're rebelling from sports because there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of discipline before there's a relationship.
Yeah.
And Drew Brees, I got to ask him a question one time. I said, why do you think kids are quitting youth sports? And what do you think the biggest problem in youth sports is today? And he said, honestly, they just get too serious too quickly. That's all that's happening. They get too serious too fast. And a lot of these coaches, they aren't building the relationship with the players and they're not making it fun. If something's not fun and we don't have to do it, we just don't do it, do we? But if it's enjoyable, then we do it. And so the question is, as a coach, like, are you willing to test that out for yourself and prioritize relationship and even, yes, some fun, and then see, will this actually result in a better? Drew Brees also went on to say in that conversation with him, he said his favorite season, I forget what it was. It wasn't the year that they won the Super Bowl. It was a year that they had got almost all the way to the Super Bowl. And he said his favorite season ever, where the team was the best, they performed the best, they didn't have the best players, was the year where Sean Payton made a priority at the beginning of the season. This is going to be the most enjoyable season we've ever had. The locker room, the fun we're going to have together, we're going to make this season extraordinary. We're going to prioritize play and fun. It's like, again, I think a lot of coaches have an issue with that. But look what happened. They took a group of guys that didn't have the best skills. They weren't the best talent, and they got all the way to the big dance. So,
yeah, I think that's powerful. And my thought was too, is the challenge in that is once you say that as a coach, living up to that.
That's right.
Not when things are good. That's like a player being excited when he makes a shot. That's not special. But what's special is after the loss on a Friday night where we don't perform our best, how are we on Saturday morning? I just talked about this with my players about toughness really being consistency, and how like the goal of what will show toughness is, can I show up the same way every day, regardless of the outcome or how I'm feeling? We want our players to do that, but we have to do that as well. And that's hard because coaches are in their feelings, I think, more than players sometimes.
Yeah. And kids have actually people in general, but kids have a really hard time being what they cannot see, right? It's hard to be what you cannot see. And so if you can witness it, that's a whole lot better than somebody telling you, hey, show up strong even when times are tough. But if you witness your coach doing that or your parents doing that, come on now. You're like, okay, I can actually wrap my head around this, right?
It's like in old school where Will Ferrell comes in his whitey tighties screaming about keep calm and keep composed, and he's slamming the chair against the wall. Like, seriously, like, no. First of all, put your clothes on, and then you get composed first. Right on the money with that. Love to go to that second one because we took a lot of different avenues there. And what was the second piece?
So the second pillar is, and it's the third part of my first book. It's mindset performance coaching, which for us, it's really, we call it mindset coaching because that's what's attractive. That's what gets an athlete or a parent to look up and be like, oh yeah, mindset, mental game. But at the end of the day, it's anything that would fall under the pillar or fall under the category of personal growth and development, leadership, mindset, anything that makes a kid or a person better at life, not just at their sport, right? It's everything that happens off the field, off the court. And so that's where we've got these 52 motivational messages throughout the year that fall under one of 12 themes, a different theme for each month. And I mean, everything from communication, how do you improve your communication as a young man or woman? Simple things.
Yeah.
Shake a coach's hand with strength, look them in the eyes, smile, right?
Yeah.
Ask questions, be curious, and we take them through some of this stuff. And if you do it consistently, the thing is, if you say do the mindset stuff consistently or do the love powered leadership stuff consistently, in the beginning, the athletes will be like, this is weird, let's not do this anymore. But over time, as they start to see how much you believe in it and that you're prioritizing it, the two most powerful words in the life of a 21st century adolescent are the words coach says. All right, coach says. Yeah, but mom, coach said this. But dad, coach said this. It's like the coach has so much power and authority that it's almost scary.
Yeah.
Right. So if coach says, hey, I got to watch these videos, or I got to write down my gratitudes this morning, or hey, at the end of the day, I should do a little reflection and get some of these negative voices out of my head that are causing me anxiety. Coach says I should probably talk to somebody about my feelings. And by the way, coach opens up that door for me. If coach says, I mean, that athlete, there's a high likelihood they're going to do it. And that's even if there's no relationship. That's how powerful a coach is, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well
yeah, so
said,
mindset
man.
performance. Yeah.
Well said, because I do think this is a calling, like the same way that
Mhm.
you were both coaches, you were doing the same thing, just in different arenas. But
Yeah.
I do think it's a calling, and I think it's one that we've got to never forget the huge responsibility that we have. But forget winning and forget the ball going through the basket or whatever sport or whatever function, but just helping them, like you said, to become more healthy human beings, better sons and daughters, better employees one day, better husbands, wives one day, better fathers and mothers. And what a great reminder. Question for you. How young can you start taking players through this type of curriculum, in your opinion?
So it depends, right? It depends on which aspects of it that you're going to pluck out, right? I mean, we've got a 8 to 11-year-old program here at the gym. The messages that they go through are tailored to them, right? Our coaches have taken the time, we've taken the time to figure out like what works for an 8 to 11-year-old versus what is more appropriate for a 12-year-old and up. So I think it's any age, right? I used to be the one who was like, well, you know what? Because parents would sign their kids up for, I started doing one-on-one mindset coaching with athletes about 6 years ago, and parents would sign their kids up at like 10, 11 years old for these sessions. And I'm like, man, this parent is like crazy. They just want their kid to be elite. Like they want them to be the
Yeah.
best.
The
But then I
kid
was
just
like,
wants
you
to
know
go get
what?
Legos anytime
I
at any
know.
moment.
And
Yeah.
I got to go sit down and talk to this weird dude about mindset. Like what? But man, I would sit down with them and then I would just find these, like, I knew I was there for a reason. I knew that kid was there for a reason. And
Yeah.
I would just find these little ways to incorporate something that, maybe 5 years down the road, that kid would remember, like, oh, that was really cool how that coach taught me how to set goals and taught me how to create my own definition of success. Or that was really cool. And that coach had me visualize the best performance I ever had and reflect on the 5 things I'm most proud of in my life. And think about the 5 things I did best last sports season, and that gave me courage for the next season. Like little things like that, a 10-year-old and 11-year-old, they can wrap their minds around it. And a lot of them are actually hungry for more than just another skill or another drill or another, hey, go run laps.
Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jamodi Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information.
So you're having all these intentional talks with players, maybe individually or with a group. I would imagine confidence comes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
We talked about the mental side already in between their ears and that self-talk. How do you go about building or helping players to build confidence in themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. We believe it's 3 things. It's the language and the self-talk they use. It's their focus. And then it's their physiology, right? How are you using your body? How are you showing up? And I'll just go with that physiology one first, because how does a confident person walk and how does a confident person talk? Well, if they walk with their shoulders back and they walk with some speed and authority, then that leads to confidence. So we teach them that confidence is generated. It's not something that you wait until you feel, right? So you generate confidence by doing things that confident people do. Focus. Well, if we have an athlete that is lacking confidence about what's coming up, right? We're lacking confidence about the next game. I'm lacking confidence in this event that I have to go do in this competition. Well, what are you focused on right now? You're focused on something that has not happened yet, and probably in your mind, something that you fear is going to happen or not happen. So how do we get you to shift your focus towards something that will give you confidence? It might come through a question like, hey, tell me the last time that you did it. Tell me the last time that you overcame it, and talk about it. And then they're like, oh yeah, I don't feel like doing that. No. Find it. Close your eyes, think about it. Find the last time you did this well.
Yeah.
and spend some time on it, right? Because what we focus on, we feel. If we focus on something we can't do well, we're not going to feel confident. But if we focus on times in our past that we've accomplished it before, that leads to confidence. And then that last pillar is the self-talk, is the language patterns that we use. And I teach our athletes all the time. We teach our athletes all the time. Imagine just like saying to yourself, like closing your eyes and saying like, I've got this, I am strong, I am confident. Your brain hears that and is like, no, you're not. I don't believe you. You don't sound confident at all, right? And so we teach our athletes, as uncomfortable as it is, you have to pair your self-talk with something that elicits some emotion inside of you. And that might mean having to go off to the bathroom or go off to the side of the field by yourself and jump up and down a couple of times and give it some oomph. I am confident. I am successful. I got this. That feels a little bit different than I am confident. I am successful. So engaging your physiology as you have your self-talk. Those are some of the ways, but it's this triangle that leads to confidence, which is physiology, self-talk, and then focus.
I would imagine most young kids, athletes, adults are very uncomfortable with that activity. What are some ways that you create this environment where they can, as Steve Nash always says, become comfortable being uncomfortable?
Yeah. So if you're struggling with confidence in any arena, right? Maybe you're struggling with confidence to go up on stage and do a public speech. Well, there's a couple ways to do it. If you can't imagine yourself in a confident place, in a confident state doing it, if you can't close your eyes and imagine that, then you have to resort to the second best thing, which is who have you seen that has been incredibly confident? Who's someone you look up to? Who's an athlete that you've watched before that just is so empowering to you and so confident? Okay, I want you to get a picture of that athlete in your head, and I want you to be able to see them performing, and I want you to think about that and focus on that, and that by itself can lead to some confidence, right? Because you can see it and then you can be it. And then we also do this thing called the performance persona, which I learned from a friend of mine, and that is, I'll tell you a quick story. He had a professional boxer that he was working with on mindset, and he asked him, he said, how are you always just such a beast in the ring? Like you are just always on, you're always so confident. And he looked at him, he said, Ryan, I'm a lion. He goes, what? You're a lion? Like, yeah, I'm a lion. And he goes, okay, I get it. Like you're a lion, you're strong. He said, no, you don't get it, Ryan. He said, when I am in that ring is my jungle. I am the king of my jungle. And when a competitor steps in that ring, he's trying to take my jungle. He's trying to take my throne. I am the king of my jungle. I'm a lion.
I got chills, man. That's strong.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when we learned this thing called the performance persona. And it's 3 different components. Number 1, what are you? Right? What is that animal, or what is that professional athlete? What is that person, that persona that you can imagine? And then what does that persona have, or what does it do? Right? It is courageous, it is strong, and it is resilient. Okay, that's great. So you've got the persona, the what is it? You've got the characteristics, but then how does that actually show up in action? Well, the resilience factor, when it gets knocked down, it gets back up. Boom, write it down. The confidence factor, when it sees a competitor in the ring, it steps forward, it doesn't retreat back. And you can get the idea, right? If a basketball player had it, the same thing, right? What is it? What's the characteristics? And then how does it show up on the court? And so you do this, and then you rehearse it a couple times, and it becomes a tool in the toolbox that you can pull out when you're feeling not confident.
So many great nuggets here. You keep going through all of these lists of 3s and things. Are these in the book, or like this 52-week program? Is that available for coaches, or is that just something only at your gym?
No. So we actually make most of this available for free. We give most of this away for free. And if you're located near a PFP, right, then obviously you can come to the PFP. And eventually, we believe God's calling us to have many PFPs. So maybe we'll have one in Texas. Who knows? But for right now, most of this content is available for free. And you can email me to get it. I'll give you that contact information as we go, or our team.
As soon as we're off the call, you'll be getting an email. And one thing I don't want to be is a coach that every day they are getting something I feel like that is good and helpful and will help them grow, but there's not really a plan. There's no path to it. It's almost random. it's all good. Like I don't feel like rarely are there just, oh, that was a miss. Like that's a dud.
Mm-hmm.
But if I did have more of a systematic approach, like I put in my offense, I put in my offense structured bit by bit to create this entire puzzle at the end, piece by piece. But then with culture or mindset, I feel like it's more like, oh, I saw that video. That's cool. I'll use that today. Nothing wrong with that. It's better than nothing. But man, to have something like what you're talking about, huge. You've dealt with a lot of athletes, and I would imagine coaches as well, and at different levels. So you've probably seen some characteristics of great coaches or leaders that they have in common. Like if you could kind of limit it to 3, what do you think great coaches? Well, I mean, I guess we talk about love powered quite a bit. That
That's
might
my
be,
first one.
yeah, it might be
Yeah.
one of them, but maybe go into a little bit deeper of how to be that impactful coach that we're talking about.
Yeah. I think a big one is great question askers, right? Be a question asker versus a teller. And that's just one that I think, like early on in my coaching career, actually up until a few years ago, when I had a really strong leader that's now on our team, just point out to me that I was using a lot of red language versus blue language. A guy named David Marquette wrote a book called Turn the Ship Around. And I don't have the story memorized, but it's one that everyone should go check out, because basically he found out that if he was going to quote unquote turn the ship around and get this team performing the way that he knew they were capable of, I think it was the Navy, on the Navy ship, and get his team to perform better, he was going to have to get buy-in instead of just telling everybody what to do and forcing them to do things. And so he realized red language is basically where people are going to reply with a one-word answer, a yes or no answer, or yes sir, no, yes sir, understand. Like it's just like, give me directions and tell me where to go. Blue language is when you ask open-ended questions and get that person to do the thinking for themselves. And a great example of a simple question is, well, what do you think? And it's like, I realized, like, this is a few years back, I realized like I never do that. Like, and I don't know if it's because I'm so impatient and I think I've got all the right answers and I quote unquote know the path forward for these athletes. But once I started to say, well, hey, Johnny, like, what do you think would be a good plan for your nutrition? It's like they were shocked because no one ever asked them. They just tell them, you need to eat healthier, you need to eat vegetables, you need to go run, you need to do more skills, you need to do this, you need to do that. And they just, yes, sir, yes, sir. And we wonder why a lot of these students and these athletes can't really think for themselves. We're not giving them a platform to do it. So trust me, I'm a work in progress on this. I do not have this mastered, but it's the kind of coach that I really look up to the most. That's the question you asked, is what kind of coaches are best qualities, is the ones that they know that they don't have all the right answers. They know that even a 15-year-old kid, an 18-year-old kid, they might learn something from them. And they might have something that kid has inside of their brain, because everybody's created uniquely. And if they ask those kids questions, and if they're curious and if they're really listening to their players, they might get a nugget from that player that transforms their organization for the next 10 years. So creating that platform for people's voices to be heard also helps with buy-in. That's a big one.
Before you go to the next one, what do you feel like is a good balance between the red and the blue? Because I was thinking of a few occasions where red language is appropriate as a coach. When I had a coach talk about, like, you got your 7-second soundbite that you've got to give them information real quick, and maybe even an 11-second soundbite where there could be a little give and take, and then 21 seconds or more where obviously a lot of blue language would really be helpful. When possession is going down the floor and I need him to front, I don't have time to, hey, how should you guard? What do you feel? No, like, I got to give him some red. But what do you think that balance is with the blue and red?
I don't know the perfect balance. I just know that if you're a coach and if this is resonating with you and you're like, I do a lot of red language, then you are not going to shift so far towards blue that it would be detrimental, right? Like, you're just not. You're going to start to practice it, and then you're going to continue to do a lot of red. So I think that it's just the process of starting to recognize, like, asking more questions versus giving advice or telling people what to do. And then you'll start to figure it out as you go. I think every industry, every niche in sports is probably a little different. So yeah, there's still plenty of times where I I think to myself, like, if I asked a question here, it would almost just sound ridiculous because it's like, it doesn't make sense, right?
To your
Like, it's just
point,
like,
awareness,
yeah,
awareness.
awareness
Like
for
have
sure.
the awareness in the situation, but then also like I think we can't be in a hurry all the time. Like
That's a problem, I think.
when I'm
Mhm.
in a hurry with my practice plan that I have all timed out and I can't deviate from it, well, then I'm not really interested in their feedback or what. I have this plan that we've got to stick to, and it's so important. And so I think when we're not in a hurry, we allow ourselves to, the 5 to 7 minutes is great at the beginning, whether it's a culture moment or mindset moment. But I think you're probably the right way. You're also hitting those within the workout, and you're constantly looking for and aware of a moment where that's when we can talk about that standard and pillar even more right now in our workout. But so having the awareness, but then the time to not be in a hurry to hit those, I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely. And I think that just goes to, again, it's the society we live in today, right? Where we want everything faster. We want the answers faster. We want to just get going, right?
Yeah.
I'm very much on the Colby personality test. I'm not sure if you've taken that or not, but I'm a quick start, right? I'm like a 9 out of 10 quick start, right? Which means like I can get things going super fast. I don't have to think. I just make decisions. But again, when you're trying to create a team, right? You can go far or you can go fast, but oftentimes those two conflict with each other. And when you think about a long sports season, it's like, you could go slower and you'll probably be better by getting people to buy in over a 2 to 3 week period. If it takes that long for a certain, like, let's just say like your playbook, for example, or a football team that, is running this certain offense and it's not working, right? 2, 3 weeks ago, it's not working. I mean, does it hurt to ask your players, hey, do you guys see anything with this offense that, could be better? Like, what are you guys seeing out there that might be that we could shift up and change? Because maybe you guys are seeing something different, and maybe they don't have anything. Maybe they're like, no, coach, this is great. But what you just did right there is you honored them, you gave them a voice, and
Yep.
again, that creates leadership. So, yep, that's a big one for us. I think that, I mean, this isn't the answer that I necessarily had to that for qualities of a coach, but I do think a coach who's willing to go slower and sacrifice short-term short-term gratification for long-term success is a big one for sure. I'm curious, what do you think?
About great coaches.
Yeah, qualities of great
Wow,
coaches.
man, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to turn it back on me. That's not how this works. I think a coach that has a strong identity,
Mm,
but when I say identity, in the right thing.
mm,
I think if a coach's identity is in how many district championships, state championships, wins and losses, climbing the ladder to something else, if it's just in the sport, I think that you said early on, I mean, they're going to be found wanting or
mm,
lacking in relationships. Uh, so I think maybe a lot of way coaches say it is knowing your why. But my identity isn't in basketball and it's not in coaching. If it is, then what's the point of all of
right.
this when my identity is in someone greater? And my identity, or even if you're not a believer, is my identity is in helping these young men and women to be the very best versions of themselves. When that's your identity, that's your why, man, the runway that you'll be on will be clean and smooth rather than short and bumpy and treacherous. And so I don't know. Since you put me on the spot, I would say that
Sure.
to me, having a clear identity, and that's I love the fact that you said that one of you're a quick starter. The fact that the things that you're teaching, it's not a strength of yours, is to me powerful, because somebody teaching something that comes easy to them, I don't know, there's just a level that, like, I don't know if I believe you. Like, I don't know, or if I don't know if I can do it. When you say that you work, because everything that you're teaching, I would imagine it is a conscious decision for you every day to
For sure.
live in the space that you're living, or else you
Yeah.
would just redline everything or red
Yeah.
talk everything.
Yep.
For me, my identity from when I was 9 and it's not perfect, but even into my 30s was all about this orange ball. And the times when it was great, I was pretty positive and a great person to be around. The times when it's not, my life took a lot of crazy turns and dips.
Yeah.
So I would say that's my answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that we talked a lot about love powered leadership practices and what to do as a love powered leader. But I think foundationally, if you don't have, for the piece that you just touched on, an identity that is outside of the sport and outside of being defined by the success in sport, then it's going to be very hard to practice love powered leadership long term.
You become Urban Meyer. I think
Yeah.
well, from that swamp documentary or whatever, the swamp or something that when it goes over Miami. Tim Tebow is a great example of how you can be dominant, passionate, a great leader, somebody that goes against the flow but has the respect of everyone and still find success without compromising your values. Like, that's it right there. If anybody hasn't watched it, every athlete, if it didn't have so much language in it, golly, I would have my players watch it, even though it's a football thing. Because for Tim Tebow, and then you can always dissect what, with the ways that people do something wrong. Golly, I'd rather learn from other people's mistakes than have to just learn it all on my own. But Urban Meyer, driven by the fear of losing and being unsuccessful and not living up to expectations, drove him out of something that he loved. Like, we all have to see that as coaches, and I don't care what level, because this is 5A TAPS, which not many people care about. It's small level basketball for high school where I am. But I take this so serious sometimes that I don't get to sleep well. Really? Like, what am I all about? And so I think those like alarm systems we got to have in our head of, you know what, and maybe have people in your life that are also helping you keep in check, whether it's your wife or family or friends or coworkers, that, hey, I feel like you're losing your why a little bit. You're taking yourself a little too serious right now. What we're doing, losing that fun. Just rambled for a while there. So hopefully you can find your way through it.
No, it's spot on, because we do start to normalize whatever we experience consistently. And it's like, we've got
You
these
just make
alarms.
things sound so much better. Like, that's why nobody asks me questions, because that right there, that was so good.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're just talking. I thought about, like, thank God that we do have these alarm systems inside of us that alert us when things are off, right? We get anxious, overly anxious. We get overly stressed. We can't sleep. And it's like, these things we start to normalize as part of the hustle. It's part of the path to success as a coach, as an athlete, as a person. It's like, that's just the price you pay. And it's like, really? Like, that sounds pretty awful. And we know where that path leads over time. All right. Stressed, burnt out, never satisfied with your success or your performance. I write about this in my second book, where it's like, man, after a while, I thought to myself, because I'm just the achievement, success focused person naturally, right? That's what I am. Performance driven, success, achievement driven. And I was like, man, I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied. That's what the world tells you, right? Never be satisfied. But then you think about it, like, what does a sports career where you were never satisfied actually feel like and look like? That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just, like, because the marker, the goal line just keeps moving as you keep moving. So you got to reflect back. And this is one of my biggest growth areas the past few years that I write about in the book, is like, I started to genuinely understand and appreciate the power of reflecting back on my wins and my progress areas, writing them down, feeling grateful for them, feeling successful and satisfied, and saying, you know what, I'm satisfied. I'm not going to get complacent. I'll keep working hard, but I genuinely am proud of myself. And not many athletes are being taught that by their coaches. They're not experiencing that personally, and they wonder why they're fearing and worried all the time.
It's rarely on social media. I mean, I do love Eric Thomas, and there's some things that I feel like, one, I mean, I would imagine if I'm in the crowd listening to him, he could get me pretty hyped up because he's, a charismatic speaker and stuff. But there's some of those famous messages, like, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And then he goes on to talk about how sometimes if you're grinding, you won't sleep, and how Beyonce stayed up days and days without sleep, without eating. Really? Like, is that the path to success? Or is it a slow journey of small victories, trying to be 1% better than you were yesterday, and being okay with yourself if you're failing, but always striving for excellence and not perfection. But I think the message is, like you said, there's a great article on Michael Jordan, and it's I take it with my guys once a year. It's kind of one of those random things I throw out that I don't really have a reason for, but I think of it that day. But it says, do you still want to be like Mike? And it's an article about how he's in his late 50s, 60s now, and he talks about, I'm empty. I gamble so much. I try to compete in everything I do because I've got nothing. And it's like, wow, the ultimate competitor is empty.
That's right.
And
That's
powerful. Right, but again, yeah, we see that, we acknowledge that, but without even realizing it, we're kind of creating that environment or instilling those values in our athletes, without, maybe not even intentionally, but it's just because we're bombarded with it, and maybe we don't know better, or we don't have those systems in place. So that's why I think talking to you and listening to guys like you is so powerful, because it highlights deficiencies in the way that we're running our programs and the way that we're helping our players.
Trying to run them in our own strength too, right? I mean, I would assume there's probably a good bit of your audience are believers or people of faith. And, it's like when we get into that grind mode, what we don't give space for is grace, and for his power to be made perfect in our weakness, right? It's like we do things for God, we play for God, but we're not teaching our athletes to do it with him. Like imagine your abilities and what you could accomplish, right? If you recognize it's not all me doing it. And I've never heard professional athletes necessarily talk about this, but like guys like Steph Curry or different pro athletes that are people of faith, like I wonder if they're actually even tapping into their full potential, or if they're actually doing it all in their own strength and relying only on their self.
And just verbally giving or pointing up, or in a press conference bite saying, first, I want to thank God, which, I mean, obviously we're never going to say don't do that, but you got to make sure, like you're saying, that one, and we're not going to be perfect, but we got to do our very, very best to, you mentioned early on, like people are watching, right? Like they're watching what we do more than just what we say in that one soundbite. So you could be dropping F-bombs on the floor, and then every once in a while point, or at the end, thank him. And it's going to fall. It's one of my favorite DC Talk songs. Do you even remember DC Talk? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Age gap right there. But no, in the 90s, DC Talk, there's this song where the guy kind of stops and in the middle of the song, and he talks about how what an unbelieving world finds unbelievable is believers that acknowledge, I'm trying to remember the lyrics, acknowledge him with our lips, but deny him with our lifestyles. Like that's what an unbelieving world finds unbelievable. And then we got to be careful as coaches. And Mono Watts, the but president of PGC right now, says more is caught than taught. And so, we can say all these great things about confidence, mindset, identity, but it always we have to be doing those things. We have to be attempting to live that way, but acknowledge to our players when we make mistakes and screw up. And because that is where grace falls in. And good stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You keep giving me credit for all these quotes and stuff, but honestly, I just get them from other people smarter than me, and then I memorize them. I'm pretty good at memorizing things. But one of the things that just stuck out to me that I was taught by one of my mentors, two of my mentors, actually, one, her name is Shay Bynes, and then the other one is Scott Reiser. They pointed out, like in business, right? There's a lot of great business leaders out there that are doing things for God, right? Doing things for the glory of God. But man, what if you did it with him, right? What would it look like every day if you acknowledged that he was with you, right? What would a coach, that's when you can truly be a love-powered coach, respond differently, respond not out of frustration, but out of principle and values. And you're like, man, that wasn't even me. I don't even know how I did that, right? Like I was out of body experience, right? It's like, because you're doing it in partnership with him versus for him. So big shift for me too.
Yeah, I think, just getting into the faith side even more to this talk, which I never shy away from. And I would hope a lot of coaches, no matter where they feel, because I've been on different parts of the spectrum in my life with that area of my life. But I think ultimately, when you make that shift, or if you want to make that shift, it is going to come down to the habits that you like. How I asked my guys this today, like, what is Christian about you? Like, what actually, besides the fact that you go to a Christian school, is that the most Christian thing? You go to church once on a Sunday. But I think that shift you're talking about for a coach is not just the quiet time that you did, not just the verse that you quote at the beginning of practice or the prayer that you have your guys do at the end, but is it really being infused in every decision and every thought? Like that's tapping into that power or that presence of the Holy Spirit in your life, that full transparency. I don't know if I feel that quite often. Right. Thankful for the guardrails that he's put in my life and that kind of keep me in check. But
same.
Yeah. I think it's something to think about for sure.
Definitely.
Man, didn't expect it to go here. That's
you never know.
No, it's all good.
Hands are open, right? Wherever we go.
Well, I do want to get into a little bit of coaching and family life, because we have talked about, I was chuckling to myself when you said the select world and how that's going right now. And kids are playing so many games and doing all these things. And, before my son got to that age, that level, I was completely like, this is just ridiculous what people are doing. And then all of a sudden I realized now, like, we're in the machine, man. Like, we're a part of it. Like, I'm in the matrix. And I like, the team he played on, they didn't practice a lot, but golly, we were at every tournament. And I was thinking, man, all these games we're playing are great. And then I had to step back and be like, what am I doing? Like, this is exactly opposite of what I've always been saying, is that we should be practicing when we're playing. We shouldn't care about these wins and losses right now. It's about development. But man, I'm a little upset after a loss where we don't play well during the summer at some random gym, after their fourth game in one day. And so balancing coaching and family life, not only do we have to go that direction, but, trying to do both. What are some tips for us to be successful in that area?
Yeah. So I've got a 4-year-old, almost 5, and then an almost 2-year-old.
Nice.
So I'm learning as a parent right now what that actually looks like, right? To balance the two. For the first few years when it was just my wife and I, and we were married, we had the conversations early on, and she knew what I did and what my mission was, right? To make an impact in the lives of student athletes, which meant, hey, I'm going to have to, 3 to 7 p.m., 3 to 8 p.m. for the big first 10 years I was in this industry, just being clear and saying, like, are you on board with this? Right. And she knew, she knows how much we care and how much we want to make a transformational difference. And so I think that's part of it, right? Is your family kind of understand what you do and why you do it. But I just read something really great the other day. Again, talk about the and versus the or. It's not like, do I make sure I have time for my family and only my family, or give my life to my service, which is noble and which is worthy and which is important. It's like, no, like it's like a crucial balance, right? You have to maintain a crucial balance of both, and being able to be aware when something's lacking. I mean, for me, I've got like a crazy conscience. So as soon as I start to feel like, man, my son just made a comment, like he's not seeing me as much, or he's right, like I change quick, maybe to a fault sometimes, right? Like the pendulum swings pretty quick, but I never want to be caught in that, like, giving too much to one or the other.
Better to be hypersensitive though about that than the other way, which is, he's fine. He'll be okay. And I think you nailed it too with sometimes when I hear coaches talk about the strains that what they're doing is putting on their marriage and how their family, they don't get what they're doing, and they're not all the time, and the why behind what they're doing. I do think, especially early on, if you're single and you start coaching and you realize this calling, then who you choose is really important. And them, like you said, outlining and understanding. Hard if you make the shift later on and you realize the time investment that really this takes to do it well, because there are coaches that punch in and out, and there's others that, man, I'm 24/7 for these kids and these families. And my wife, her dad was a football coach for 35 years. With that came some challenges because she understood the job and the mission, but she saw it go too far, where Saturdays and Sundays he's gone, where the family felt second sometimes. And so it was a clear conversation with us about, and it's also our second marriage for both of us. And so in her previous one, she felt at times where she wasn't first, or if God is first, she wasn't the next.
Yeah.
And so like that to me, for me and you, is we are going to give everything to them, but we always have to remember that order. And I love that you said the moment that you're conscious, like listen to that. Sure. The moment that bell goes off, like don't think that it's nothing, make it a big deal. And I think they just always have to know that they're first.
That's right. Yeah. And I think there's a lie going around that rattled me when I heard it. But I think the lie is that, hey, quality time is more important than quantity time. And the fact is, no, your wife and your kids, or your spouse and your kids, they need both quantity of time with your presence and quality.
Next 15 minutes, guys, I'm here. I'm there for you. Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
It's like you can't microwave relationships. You just can't. You can't do it fast. Even if it's, and the better analogy in today's world is the air fryer, right? Like the air fryer actually, I mean, has defied the odds. You can do it fast and good, but not in relationships. You cannot air fry your relationships and just make it really good for a short period of time. It's like, no, they need both. They need it. And honestly, for me, man, like I started realizing, like when I would spend a full day at home with the kids, this is multiple years ago, thank God that I realized this, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like I miss out on so many different personalities and phases throughout one day. Like there's so many little cool things that my kids do in one given day that if I only had 1 hour of quote unquote quality time with them where I was all in, I miss all those other parts of them throughout a day. And so again, we got to work, right? We got to have, we've got a profession and whatnot that we have to do. But when you have the opportunity, are you choosing to spend more time with your kids, or are you saying, you know what, it's more fun for me to dive into my playbook and dive into these things? That's where for me, I felt very convicted, because I was like, man, like, is part of me, like, is my heart wrong? Like, do I just genuinely want to do work-related things more than wanting to be around my kids and family? Because I'm not as in control of that area of my life. We could go down a whole rabbit hole there. But I think that's what it comes. I think that's what it comes back to, right? We feel more in control sometimes in our coaching profession or in our working profession, and we feel like we have less control over what happens, less certainty with our families. But that's where the true love and satisfaction is.
This isn't a knock on anybody that does have hobbies. They go golf for a long time, or they go camping on with their boys. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But the more I do this and I talk to coaches about that balance and how tricky it is, I realize that a lot of coaches don't have hobbies. That's right. And purely because they don't have time to take away from the calling, or to take away from their family, or they're unwilling to do that. So again, and so I was thinking to myself, like, I think I'm kind of boring. Like I like to work out, but I even try to do that before anybody's up. And then I'm here and I try to be all in with what I'm doing here. And then when I'm home at night, like I'm all in with them. I don't hang out with my friends anymore. It's like my wife is kind of my best friend now, which is cool. But it's sure. Like, I think I'm not saying not to have hobbies, but I think I'm acknowledging a common thread, which is when you're doing something worthwhile that requires a lot of yourself, but you still want to have that family life and make sure they're important, and you might have to give up some fun stuff.
Absolutely. That's right.
Coach, can I call you coach? Do people call you coach?
Absolutely.
All right, good. I want to call you that. Yeah. Hey, the speed round, these are going to be quick questions that a lot of people, especially I would imagine when you're working with your athletes and their families, like you're pretty transparent. You let them know about you and you tell stories about yourself, all this stuff. But the speed round is going to allow us to really know who you are.
Cool.
All right. First thing, favorite ice cream flavor.
So I'm dairy free, but I do the coconut milk and oat milk ice cream, probably mint chocolate chip.
Okay. Let's just go sweets then. What's your sweet tooth? You want to have something. What do you go to? Or not a big sweet guy?
Honestly, no, probably ice cream. Probably the dairy-free ice cream. They actually taste very good. You should try it.
Really? Okay. Because when you said dairy-free, I immediately go, oh, man, poor guy.
Not sugar-free. So
there's a difference. I go dairy-free, sugar-free, That's just chalk. Like, I don't know what that
That's
is at that
avocado
point.
ice cream, Tom Brady. Yep, that's right. Yeah.
I love avocados. That just sounds bad. Okay. Let's go a little basketball here. I'm going to test your knowledge. Greatest shooter of all time.
Got to be Steph Curry.
Yeah, good call. Good call. Man, this is kind of tough because a lot of these are basketball specific questions.
Hey, I
but
played basketball. That was my
okay.
passion.
All right, thanks, man. Let's keep going then. Because I don't think I'm smart enough to make these. But I'll do two questions here. First, best basketball movie of all time.
Coach Carter came to mind first. I'm going to go with Coach
Yeah.
Carter.
I think most coaches love it because who wouldn't love to just grab that athlete and slam him against the wall one time and not get fired? I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I do it, but there's been in times. Favorite sports movie in general.
Remember the Titans.
Good one. There is so much about that movie I love. I know I bashed it. I disagree with his whole coaching philosophy, though, as far as perfection is the goal, gentlemen. No, it's not, Coach Boone. But no, that's a good one. Texting or talking?
Talking. That should have been a really easy answer, but
Nah,
I
not
don't know why I
today.
hesitated. My wife would have told you for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Andrew does not like to text.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What book would you give someone?
Not my own. I was
Yeah,
gonna
you
make a
can't do
joke,
that.
but
You
no,
can't do
definitely wouldn't
that.
do
Yeah.
that. No, I think outside of the Bible, the book that I
Yep.
would give somebody would be Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey.
Nice. Okay. First, do you take in caffeine throughout the day?
I do.
All right. In what way do you take it?
So I drink a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, 4:30, 4:45 a.m. when I wake up. And then I do usually like a cold brew, like late morning. I try to stop caffeine pre-12 though, because the half-life of caffeine is about 8 hours. So
Yep.
you gotta
I'm
give it up early.
on my Jocko, my second
I like
Jocko Go of
those.
the day. The reason I like them so much,
Yeah.
one, and they're not a sponsor. So Jocko Go, I love for you to be one, but only like 4 ingredients as opposed to the, like I love C4s sometimes because of the beta alanine in it gives you that tingle. And, that sounds weird, but no, but then it's only 95 grams of caffeine. So like I can have 2 of these and I'm thinking that's about 2 cups of coffee. But how do you drink your coffee?
So my wife and I discovered something that's pretty incredible. So dairy free, of course, like I said, coconut Cool Whip. Okay, coconut Cool Whip. We do the coffee, right? We might even put like some collagen protein in it, some little bit of protein powder in the coffee, and then we throw in maybe a splash of oat milk or almond milk or something like that. But then we take a little dollop of coconut Cool Whip, put it right on top, makes it a little creamy. And I'm pretty sure I've gotten at least 100 people now to go out and buy that and start making their coffee that way. I should have stock in this company.
That's right. Next pivot for you is you're going to go to your gym and be like, guys, listen, this has been great. I'm opening up my own coconut. Yeah, that'd be a good day.
Cocoa Whip. That's right.
Yeah, that's cocoa. Name a bucket list item that you still need to do.
So I go to like vacation type stuff with the family right off the bat. Definitely want to do a safari, African safari.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay. Are you going to be like in the top of a van that's open where you could fall out? Or are you going to be in an armored vehicle with windows and stuff? Like nothing's getting at me here.
If it were my choice, the first, but if I'm with my wife, the second one's going to be.
There's no way I could be up on top. Like I hit a bad bump and I fall over, like no, or something flies. They're in trees, man. Like, there's no way. No, but I think a safari would be fun.
For sure.
Last one. This might be the most important question of the whole day. In basketball, who is the GOAT?
That is so easy, but hard depending on how we're defining success. Per this podcast.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it is the person that you've already mentioned in terms of.
Do you still want to be like Mike?
Yeah, Michael Jordan, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. I think in terms of this podcast, you might have to go LeBron or somebody like him, because
Seems like he has
obviously,
more balance.
no doubt, like super successful, the longevity of his career, but never been in trouble off the floor. A family man, goes to his kids' games, open schools, like, and maybe the part of his balance is what we knock him for in this conversation is like the I love the video of Jordan. He was like he had all his skill, but like the mindset of an assassin. Yeah, that is something like you look at his eyes and you're like, oh, there's just I'm fearful. LeBron, though, there is that part of him, like he defers to his teammates. He's very, like, bringing people together. You rarely hear about people talk about LeBron as a negative teammate. Maybe the owners don't like him, but because he wants to run things there. But I could see with our talk, probably he's the GOAT. But
I would agree. That's a little bit of a paradigm shift for me too here. So I like that. Yep.
I think that's the way you have to approach that question. Okay, are we talking just straight assassin or good person? All right. Andrew, this has been such an enjoyable conversation, and I really did. I learned a lot from you, and you gave me a lot of things, and I would imagine coaches that listen to this, hopefully parents and players too, a lot of things to think about. First, I want to thank you so much for giving up your time.
Absolutely.
If people have questions like I'm going to email you to get that information, or find your books, maybe talk about those things. And because I think this is going to, again, instead of just give coaches things to think about and, hey, good luck, man, give us some resources and a path. What do you got?
For sure. A couple of websites you can go to: andrewjsimpson.com. A lot of the stuff's there. andrewjsimpson.com/free book. You'll get the free book, so that'll be important. Andrew@pfpfit.com, pfpfit.com. That would be my email address. You can email me there, and then any of the resources you can't find, I can shoot those over. And social media, I'm on social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Andrew Simpson, Coach Andrew Simpson, I believe, is Instagram. But anyway, you'll find me on all the other stuff. We'll get connected.
Nice, man. This was great. And again, just thank you for what you're doing for athletes and for coaches. Like, I think it's just so important nowadays with the mental health of our students, and the way that social media is playing a huge role in that and helping them navigate through it. I just think what you're doing is awesome.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it, man. Right back at you.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.